By 53 BC, the Roman heavy infantry was the standard against which all other ancient armies were measured. Disciplined, heavily armored, and trained for relentless close-quarters combat, the legions had systematically dismantled the Macedonian phalanx and the tribal coalitions of Western Europe. That record gave the Roman general Marcus Licinius Crassus supreme confidence. He marched an army of 40,000 legionnaires eastward into Parthian territory, expecting a swift campaign to expand the Republic's borders and his own personal wealth. But as the legions crossed into the Near East, the terrain changed. The tight valleys and forests of Europe gave way to massive, arid, and completely open plains, a landscape where slow-moving infantry lacked natural cover and traditional defensive positions. Waiting for them was a Parthian army composed entirely of cavalry. They brought no foot soldiers and numbered only around 10,000 men, 1/4 the size of the Roman force. On paper, Crassus held an overwhelming numerical advantage. Yet this smaller, mounted force proceeded to systematically dismantle the legions, resulting in one of Rome's most significant military defeats. To understand how they did it, we can look at this surviving example of lamellar armor. Constructed from interlocking, overlapping rectangular plates, it provided a flexible yet iron-clad shell for both the rider and his mount. This later Sassanid rock relief depicts a rider holding a contus, a massive lance measuring 3 to 4 meters long. This gave the Parthians a distinct reach advantage, allowing them to strike Roman soldiers before the shorter infantry spears could get close. Wielding a two-handed lance meant the rider had to steer a 500-kilogram armored horse at full gallop, using only leg pressure and weight shifts. It required a level of horsemanship that took years to master. Fielding these units was an immense economic undertaking. Only the highest tiers of the Parthian aristocracy could afford the multiple war horses, custom armor, and lifelong training required, turning these troops into multi-generational military assets. This combination of elite wealth, heavy armor, and sheer momentum created a dedicated shock weapon. It was engineered purely to deliver enough kinetic force to fracture stationary infantry lines. Heavy cavalry was only half the equation. The bulk of the Parthian force consisted of light, unarmored horse archers, like the one depicted in this clay figurine, specialized in harassment and mobile warfare. Armed with composite bows, these riders perfected a maneuver known as the Parthian shot. They would ride away at high speed, twist in their saddles, and fire backward with accuracy while feigning a retreat. If the heavy cavalry was the hammer, these archers were the anvil. They functioned as a constant, untouchable threat designed to harass the enemy and force them into a static, defensive posture. At the Battle of Carrhae, the horse archers struck first. They encircled the Roman legions and unleashed a relentless volley of arrows into the tight infantry formations. Looking at this relief, you can see the Roman response, the Testudo, or tortoise formation. The legionnaires locked their rectangular shields together overhead, creating a dense shell that deflected the incoming arrow storm. This schematic shows the Testudo was a trap. While safe from arrows, the infantry block became rigid, stationary, and completely blind. Then the cataphracts charged. They drove heavy lances directly into the unmoving Roman formations, shattering the lines and ending any counterattack. The archers and heavy cavalry worked in total synergy. The arrows forced the Romans to stop and lock their shields, creating a stationary, densely packed target for the cataphracts to destroy. The numbers at Carrhae were devastating for Rome. General Crassus was killed, 20,000 Roman soldiers were slaughtered, and 10,000 were taken prisoner. The scale of the defeat forced Rome to reconsider its strategy in the east. For the first time, a Roman army had been outmaneuvered and outfought by a cavalry-centric force, establishing a strategic boundary that would define the frontier for the next several centuries. The 10,000 captured legionnaires met a unique fate. Rather than being executed or enslaved at home, the Parthians marched the survivors to the opposite end of their empire to guard the distant eastern frontier. Decades later, Chinese Han records describe a battle against soldiers fighting in a fish-scale formation, a shield wall tactic previously unknown in that region. Historians have long speculated these men were the survivors of Carrhae, thousands of miles from the Mediterranean. The battle at Carrhae demonstrated that the Roman infantry model had a structural weakness. It showed that with enough engineering and specific combined arms tactics, a smaller force could pin down and break